Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of WSL Pure One Ocean. I'm Reese, I'm your host, and I hope this finds you healthy, safe, and staying sane wherever you're listening. This week we talk about how to save the ocean. And it's important and topical because this week is also the International Day for Biodiversity. It's on May 22nd, and the day is meant to celebrate the incredible biodiversity, the plants and animals around us that we, love for the sake of their beauty, but also because they provide incredible ecosystem services to us as humans, and they're critical for our existence on this planet. And so there's a real strong effort to actually protect them. And if we don't, we're in trouble. So to talk about how we protect them and how we protect the ocean is my good friend and mentor, Lisa Speer. Lisa works at the Natural Resources Defense Council, or NRDC, where she's the director of the International Oceans Program. I've seen her work behind the scenes at the United Nations. I've seen her work at the climate conferences, and I know and understand the way that she is paving the way for nations, nonprofit groups, and all sorts of environmentalists to protect the ocean. And I'm really honored to have her here and to share with you a preview of our upcoming campaign to protect the ocean. So please join me in this conversation, listen in, understand how we together are all going to save our one shared ocean. Here's Lisa Speer. Lisa, thanks for joining us. Thanks for being on the show.
Hi, Reese. I'm delighted to be here.
It's always good to connect. Lisa, you have an incredible background. You've been with the NRDC for how long now?
37 years.
37 years?
Before you were born.
that's right on point as long as I've been alive. That's incredible. And so you are the director of the International Oceans Program for the NRDC, correct?
Exactly. Yep. I'm very fortunate to have this wonderful job where I get to work with people like you.
I don't know if that is a benefit of this role. But quickly, before we dive into the NRDC and your program, who are you? Give us a little bit more background about you.
Yeah,
how do you define yourself?
So I am actually a child of the mountains. I climb and ski. I'm not a surfer. That's okay. I would not know one end of a surfboard from the other. And God knows, I know you can't sink them, but I'd find a way if you ever let me on one. So, but I love the ocean, and I love the feeling about this really neglected part of our planet that hasn't received the kind of conservation attention that many other pieces of our world have. And so, I've really been a very passionate about the ocean, really right from year one.
That's awesome. And so. How did you get into the NRDC? I mean, it sounds like you've been there a long time, most of your career, but was there a path there through another oceans program or work?
So I got a degree actually in forestry, and the degree in forestry really taught me how connected everything is. And so when a spot opened up at NRDC, I thought, the earth, the natural world, onshore, offshore, it doesn't matter. It's all connected. And I really fell in love with the ocean as soon as I got in there, and have been there ever since. So.
And I mean, you have a marine science degree also, right?
I do not.
No. Oh, you do not. Why am I mistaken there?
I have a master's degree in forestry and environmental studies.
So how'd you make the pivot to fisheries work and ocean management? How did that happen?
Well, it was the job that was available. And I had an NRDC tends to hire from graduate programs of fairly good reputations, and I happened to come from one, and so I was very lucky to get my job and to work with my team, and have been active ever since on the ocean, and really would not have it any other way.
That's awesome. So for those who don't know, what is the NRDC?
So the NRDC is an awesome organization of lawyers and scientists and policy advocates like me. And we are all over the world. We have offices throughout the United States. We have an office in India and in China, and we do a lot of work in Latin America as well. So our goals are to protect people, to protect the natural world. That means clean water, clean air, healthy climate, healthy natural systems. And we're backed up by an amazing crew of 3 million, more than 3 million members and online activists who have been hugely influential in moving forward on conservation on a whole range of issues. So really a great place to be. We're a nonprofit, and I'm based here in New York. Actually, I'm in Connecticut, but our headquarters are in New York, and that's where I'm based.
That's awesome. And so you mentioned this sort of your scientists and lawyers. So I imagine that balance, or I mean, I know what it is, but for those listening who maybe don't understand how that works, I mean, it essentially is science informing policy and then lawyers going out and enforcing and or trying to create regulations for that policy. Is that correct? I mean, is that the sort of balance?
That's exactly right. And so, for example, a lot of the lawyers at NRDC got together with some scientists and collaborated to essentially write portions of the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act back in the 1970s. So for 50 years, we've been out there writing legislation, working in Congress, working with the administration, but also working in other countries to try to advance our goals. Everything is based on science and everything is based on law. And so we try to improve the law, we try to implement the law, we try to enforce the law. That's our modus operandi.
Yeah. And, you mentioned that international work, and I was very lucky to come out and join you early on when we first got to know each other. You invited me out. You said, if you're going to be in New York, come check out the UN High Seas Treaty negotiations. So it's at the United Nations. And I was kind of like, sounds interesting, super cool. I'm into it. I had no idea what to expect. I wore my not wetsuit, but my dry suit, which is my actual suit, because I was like, I'm going to the UN. I guess I need to dress like an adult. And I showed up and I got to be behind the scenes with you as you were doing your work. So maybe tell us a little bit about, how your work at the NRDC translates. Like, what is the NRDC doing in that room? And then tell us about the High Seas Treaty negotiation and why it's important.
Yeah, great. So part of making law is making treaties. And the ocean beyond national jurisdiction, that's the international portion of our ocean, which is 2/3 of the ocean. It actually covers nearly half the planet.
Wow.
And nobody knows about it. And it's managed right now the way that we used to manage forests in the 60s and 70s, where the users are the ones that are making the rules. And there's no real comprehensive integrated management or conservation.
When you say the users are the ones making the rules, you mean the fisheries or the foresters, right? So the lumberers who are going out there and chopping them down. They're saying, these are the rules, this is how we do it. And there's no one really safeguarding the interests of either the trees or the fish themselves or the people who depend on those habitats. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So seabed miners are basically running the seabed mining show. What
is seabed mining?
So this is a really scary, new, relatively new industrial activity that is moving out into the ocean. So the world is short on cobalt, manganese, other metals that are important for our electronics,
our batteries and stuff.
Our batteries,
right.
our cars, et cetera. And so proposals have been made to mine the seabed for these minerals. And the idea of going out and strip mining the ocean floor and generating huge plumes and destroying everything in the path is really scary, but it's already begun to work its way through the process. So there is an elaborate international institution that is now forming regulations on how these minerals should be mined. Our view is we shouldn't be out there mining the ocean floor. There's no way it would be like a strip mine in Utah. Just think about those pictures you've seen. We don't want to do that in the ocean. There's no way to control anything. And so our view is there ought to be a moratorium on seabed mining.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay, so I interrupted you. Sorry, that's just one of the many different things that's going on out there. So back to the original question. Let's talk about the high seas a little bit more.
So the high seas, it's like the Wild West. There's no rules. There's no regulations. There's very few sheriffs. And you have all kinds of things happening out there as coastal areas have become depleted. Industries are moving farther and farther out of offshore and into international waters. Again, this is the water that's beyond the 200-mile limit that belongs to individual countries.
And that's the EEZ, exclusive economic zone, right? So every country has some EEZ, and depending on how much coastline you have, the more EEZ you have theoretically, right? So some of the bigger countries, as I understand it, like France is huge because of all the islands they have, Chile, United States, Australia, obviously. Any others that are on that top 5 or 10 list that I'm not thinking of?
Russia, a very substantial one as well. So, but so it's an increasingly busy ocean out there,
right?
And because the rules are so weak, there's very little to prevent the kinds of problems that have plagued coastal areas. So increasingly, we're seeing shipping, fishing, pollution, dead zones, all of the things that we've all seen close by as we move into this area. So the United Nations decided, after quite a long period of time of us pushing along, to commence negotiating a new treaty that would improve and strengthen the conservation and management of this 2/3 of the world's ocean, half the planet that's been ignored for so long. And unfortunately, we have to use the United Nations. It's slow, it's ponderous, it takes forever to get anything done, but it's the place where international agreements have to be forged. So it's like the climate. The ocean beyond national jurisdiction doesn't belong to any one nation. It belongs to all nations. So all nations have to agree on how to manage it. And we got involved in this because it seemed to us that here's half the planet. Nobody knows what's out there. We know more about the backside of the moon than we do about our own deep ocean. And, it's time to strengthen the conservation and management of this area before it gets overrun by the kinds of pressures that have influenced and harmed our coastal waters. So that's why we got involved, is we thought here is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to strengthen protection for half the planet. And how lucky is that, to work on something like that?
It's truly incredible. I mean, the way, just hearing you, and I know about this a bunch, obviously, because we're working on it with you, but to hear you say it like that, a once-in-a-generation opportunity, because it's kind of trying to get upstream of a problem, right? Which is always, it's the thing that I think we as environmentalists are always kind of going, oh, how do we go clean up this mess? But it's way better if we can get ahead of something and protect a place proactively. And you're talking about 2/3 of the planet, right? And so it's just so important that we actually get out there and protect it before it's too late. Now, I mean, unfortunately, we're actually already seeing a lot of biodiversity loss, and we're seeing some of these activities where our fisheries are under threat of collapse and all that. So it's almost getting too late, but it's not, because protection can actually help. The ocean's resilient. It can rebound, correct?
Exactly. And, I was thinking about this the other day, as the biodiversity report, so you had mentioned the biodiversity problems that have been emerging. And last year, a UN scientific panel found that close to 1 million species across the Earth, across the planet, are at risk of extinction. And in the ocean, the problem has mostly been related to overfishing and to pollution to some extent. Now it's climate change is looming over everything. So the ocean is warmer than at any time in recorded history. It's more acidic than any time in the last 14 million years. And it's losing oxygen as a result of the changes in ocean currents and stratification. And so suddenly we now have this looming threat of climate on top of the other stressors that are already out there. And so our goal is to, number one, reduce emissions. So NRDC has a huge program to address climate change and stop it. But even if we stopped emissions tomorrow, there's enough change built into the system that the ocean faces major threats. And so the most important thing that scientists tell us we can do for the ocean, besides reducing emissions, is to strengthen the resilience by reducing other stressors. So protecting large areas of the ocean from other stressors like fishing, shipping, noise pollution, chemical pollution, et cetera, can help enhance the resilience of the ocean. It's like a person who is healthy is better able to withstand cancer treatment than a person that is suffering from a variety of other problems. So that's our goal here, is to strengthen the resilience of the ocean by reducing the number of stressors in the high seas as well as within the coastal zones.
That's a great way to summarize it. It's the kind of death by 1,000 cuts, right? All these things combined together with climate change on top of it is a real, cocktail for disaster. But we do have solutions. And so it's really about creating the political will. To go back to the UN and go back to your work, I think sometimes people are, we get impatient as individuals and we want to see direct action or know what we can do as individuals. But in a lot of these cases, this political will at the highest level of the planet is really important, because you need all those different stakeholders and voices involved, and you need every country at the table, or at least as many as you can get at the table, to be a part of the conversation, to all agree at the highest level, and then pave the way for those countries and nonprofit organizations and local constituents to do the work. It's really about kind of greasing the skids, like enable them to do their work in their local community. Is that correct?
So, yeah, I think, and one of the things that has been really lacking, at least in the arena of the high seas, is political pressure that comes up, as you said, from the bottom up to the heads of state.
Well, fish can't talk, unfortunately.
Fish can't talk.
and we've fished all of them out. So
even if they could, right? So one of the really cool things I like about working with WSL and Pure is the fact that you have so many followers, and they are all young, they're all passionate about the ocean, and I've seen it, and I'm just wowed. And I feel like that capturing that energy, that demand for change, can really help motivate real change in the ocean, on the water. And so working with WSL and Pure, I think collaborating with you guys and our other collaborators is just a really exciting opportunity to push this forward. And it sounds very arcane and remote, but the UN is just made up of people, and people are listening to their governments, and their governments are listening, in most cases, to their citizens. So the more noise citizens can make, the more change that can happen and trickle up through that process. So I'm excited, and I think we're at a key point in this whole process. And I feel like awareness of the ocean and the need to protect the ocean is higher than it's ever been in my 37 years at NRDC. People understand there's a problem. We do not have time. We can't wait for COVID-19 to be over. We need to move ahead. So that's what we're doing.
That's well said. And it sounds like, there are a couple things that I want to tee up here, but it sounds like we know what the solution is, or at least we know what the numbers are that we need to hit. And so I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about 30 by 30 and talk about that in context of what this week is. So today's Thursday. Tomorrow is May 22nd, and it is the International Day for Biodiversity, right? Yeah. It's celebrated by the Convention on Biological Diversity. So, it's not an Earth Day. It's not even a World Oceans Day. It's often a kind of more forgotten about environmental day, but it's a very important day. And biodiversity is a critical component of our life here on this planet. Biodiversity provides a lot of ecosystem services. So we have International Biodiversity Day, and in a couple weeks we have World Oceans Day. And so we're teeing up some work together that we're going to release to the world in a campaign, which we'll get to in a second. But I thought maybe you could touch on, like, what is the science telling us we need to do to protect this biodiversity?
Yep. So, like I said before, the key thing is to protect very large areas from other stressors. And so the science is kind of converging around the need to protect to fully or highly protect at least 30% of the ocean in order to bolster resilience. Some people say more, some people say 50.
What's the current percent?
2.5.
So now those numbers are sometimes argued that it's maybe 4 or 5%. I've seen as high as 7% thrown out there. But you said fully and highly protected, and I know that those words exactly are very important. So what does that actually mean?
So there are a variety of types of marine protected areas, so-called marine parks in the ocean. Some of them prohibit almost all industrial activities. Those would be fully and highly protected. Others allow certain things to happen. So there are protected areas in Canada where they allow oil drilling. There are protected areas, that are protected only for a certain period of time to allow, for example, sea lion reproduction off the Aleutian Islands. Those tend to be counted in the total protected areas, and that number is the 7 to 8%. What we're talking about is giving nature an opportunity to thrive completely protected from all kinds of industrial activities. So indigenous use, sort of mild recreational use, fine, but no big bottom trawlers, no industrial purse seiners, no seabed mining, no exploration for oil and gas, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, the major stuff.
Exactly. So that's the key point.
So it's 30%, and it's there's a date on it too, right?
Right, by 2030. And the reason that date is because there's an international body called the Convention on Biological Diversity. And the leaders of that convention meet every 10 years. That's a long gestation period for ideas. They meet more often than that. I misspoke. The official meeting is like every targets. 10 years. Okay, there you go. Because I know there's a bunch more meetings. There are definitely a bunch more meetings. They meet every 10 years to set new biodiversity targets. Those are targets to achieve greater biodiversity. And the last one was in 2010. And the next one was supposed to be in October, but it will not take place until probably next year. But that meeting is key because it'll set targets for biodiversity conservation in forests, in wetlands, and in the ocean for the next 10 years. So our campaign is geared around getting international agreement on the part of everybody to protect 30% of the ocean by 2030, fully and highly.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's such a cool thing. And you deserve a lot of credit for bringing this campaign to my attention. Really, I'd only loosely heard of it. And you were the one who really put it on my radar and said like, hey, this is going to be a big thing. And this was, almost a year ago, maybe last fall. And you started saying like, hey, next year, this is going to be a big thing. You guys want to start working on this. And so we did, and we put our heads together, and there was a reason why we actually combined our efforts here beyond just it's the right thing to do, is there seemed like there was a strategic sort of opportunity for us to kind of, rally in certain places. And so I'm curious, I mean, your work, having seen you behind the scenes at the UN, it seems very, very strategic because the UN works a certain way. Every country has different interests. So the NRDC basically has to map out and understand which country has which interest and what are they going to accept or adopt, and how do we get them to see another side of these things so that maybe they come to the table and we all get there, right? I mean, essentially what's happening is the UN is just a bunch of delegates all debating, right, and negotiating. I mean, that's, and it's all these like side meetings, and then there's the influence, and it's getting this minister of the environment here to maybe come influence this one and say, hey, come on, you want to get on board. Is that kind of what it is?
Exactly. I mean, you walk into this huge room and you're sitting in a semicircle around, with all of the countries represented. And there's a president in the front, and the president is basically walking through the various pieces of the negotiations that have to be resolved. So when I first started going in there, I was like, what the heck am I doing here? And in fact, when I first started working at the UN, I was with a colleague of mine. We were sitting outside a conference room, and a delegate came out and said, "Oh, are you waiting to clean the room?" I mean, this place is like a throwback, or it was. It's much better now, but anyway. It's a hard place to kind of penetrate at first. But, it's like anything else, Reese. If you establish personal relationships with the delegates, it's really a lot about that. And, we try to assist in ways that we can, bringing scientific expertise in, bringing legal expertise in, helping to find compromises between different interests, helping to to facilitate the development of regional positions by different groups of countries. So but it's all basically based on the personal relationships that we've been able to develop with many of these delegates over the years.
And that's part of, I mean, again, to have you in this role and in this position and field for 37 years at one organization, that longevity, one, doesn't really exist at a lot of companies anymore. And that's why that's so important. But two, that shows that strength of those donors and the members who support the NRDC to enable you to do this really important work. So I think, like, to anyone who's not a member of NRDC, if you've been thinking about where you can put your dollars, I'll plug it for you. I'm a proud member. Listen, just throw some bucks to NRDC. If you want to think about one really good way that you can help the climate, help the ocean, NRDC is doing that important work. But it also helped inform the overall strategy. Again, going back to that, I think, like, not to get into every single country, but when you map out countries that have large EEZs, exclusive economic zones, it just so happens that there are a lot of waves in those exclusive economic zones. The places with more coastline have more waves. And it was one of those things where we looked at the places that the WSL goes on tour, some of the favorite waves even off tour, and we said, holy crap, like, these are where our people are. These are where our surfers are, our friends and community. And we said, if we can help bring this message to them, to let them know, hey, you need to be a part of helping protect your coastline and help protect what's outside of your coastline, right? Because the ocean is all connected. That's this whole concept of the We Are One Ocean campaign of the show, WSL Pure One Ocean. It's like, it's all connected. And so that's where my eyes lit up, because I went, oh, South Africa, Japan, Brazil, Australia, USA. I mean, all these places, Indonesia. I mean, huge coastlines, tons of waves, and really important to the UN targets that, we're trying to get set. So that's where it was really exciting to work with you on this campaign. And I guess, in a very sort of informal way, but next week, we're going to be launching this campaign together. And I couldn't be more excited to start to engage the surf community and the broader ocean community in this campaign, because we now have partners in this coalition who are sailors and organizations that have nothing to do with surfing, but they're just like, this is important and we all need to get behind these targets together. So I want to thank you. I mean, thanks for bringing out this initiative to us and working with us on it.
Well, I'll tell you how excited I was when I heard that there was a surfing organization that was actually interested in trying to promote conservation, because, not everybody does. And I really feel, if we talk about how long things take, big things take a while. They take investment. They take a long-term investment. And we have now gotten to the point where I think we're right at the edge of major change. And WSL surfers are really a very vibrant group and who are passionate about ocean conservation. And so the idea of deploying this army of young people who are anxious to see change is just so awesome. And could not be more excited. And I'm also really excited about the fact that you've reached out to sailors and other industries that are, have an interest in ocean conservation and really want to make change. So, and there's photographers, there's a whole universe and community of people who love the ocean. And I think together we can get this over the finish line. We can get 30 by 30, and we can achieve the kind of conservation gains we need for the ocean and for ourselves.
Yeah. And I mean, what better, initiative to pursue. So we're really excited. So it's going to be live next week. The campaign website is weareoneocean.org. We're pushing for 30 by 30. We're saying that we want to see 30 by 30 fully and highly protected using the official verbiage. And it'll be a petition. We want, everyone listening and everyone to sign this petition. We're going to send that to the Secretary General for the UN Convention on Biodiversity. And we're going to encourage you to also reach out to your representative for your country or here in the U.S. for your state. And it's important that they hear from you and hear why the ocean is important to you, and understand that, protection does not mean it prevents us from using the ocean. It just means we use it smarter. If we protect certain areas with a marine protected area, that's going to increase the spillover of the fish that grow in those areas, the nurseries it provides, and provide fish elsewhere where we can fish. It's going to enable us to have healthier oceans overall. overall. So we're really excited about this campaign, Lisa, and thank you for your strategic input. I don't know, it's just so fun. And we have a couple articles. The theme of this week is biodiversity. The articles that go along with this, if you want to read more about this, is one, I definitely encourage you to go to nrdc.org and check out their oceans program. But we also have Enric Sala, you mentioned photographers, who wrote a really great, he's a conservationist, he's a Nat Geo explorer. He wrote an article, Nature is Our Best Antiviral, in Project Syndicate. And he really highlights that we need to hit 30 by 30. I mean, he's been a really staunch advocate for this. And do you know Enric? I would guess that you know him through your work.
Everybody knows Enric. He's a legend in the ocean conservation community. I've known him for years, and he nailed it. I mean, it's really true. And it's interesting how many new medicines are coming from the ocean. And that's one of the points he makes, that, we have medicines now from the ocean that treat HIV, that treat cancer, heart disease, almost every disease known to man. And just earlier this month, the first antiviral treatment was developed from a sea sponge that is now approved by the FDA for treatment of COVID-19. So there's a lot out there.
I didn't realize that. That's incredible.
Yeah, there's a lot out there. I mean, that's part of the argument, is we haven't explored enough. We have no idea what's out there, really. We, big airliners get lost there, and, we can't find them.
Right.
It's, we just don't know what is out there, and we need to protect a lot of it before we destroy it. But I think we have a real, again, opportunity to move this ahead, and things are coming together in a cool way. And this very difficult time for COVID-19, I think, has brought to mind in many people how important nature is. We all, for me anyway, it sustains me. It gets me through, my teenage kids arguing through the house.
Just go outside.
Go outside. It gets me through all these Zoom meetings, where you're talking to 10 million different people from all over the world.
Yeah.
And people are beginning to get that, how important nature is, how important the ocean is, and that we don't have a lot of time to go out there and protect it. So let's do it.
Yeah, I love it. The other article, just for everyone to go check out, it's very, very well said, Lisa, but I just want to just kind of get these in. The new High Seas Treaty could be a game changer for the ocean. So it's specifically, this one's from the Revelator, and a really good article in depth going on about how the ocean is not protected very much, but how important that is. And it does talk about the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea, and which I'm sure you're familiar with and have worked on. And, the different ways in which we need to engage with this really important initiative. It even goes into a little bit of the sort of the politics of it, which is going to be challenging, right? Certain countries have different interests. And of course, at the UN level, we need to get that consensus. And that's what this work is all about. How do we get everybody to the table and make sure that we're equitable for everyone involved? So I don't know. I'm super excited. I'm moving along because I want to get to the fan questions. We had so many questions for you.
That's great.
We put it out to the world, and we said, who's got questions for Lisa? We had questions from all over the world, truly. And I'm excited to kind of go through these. So because we have so many, we're not going to be able to ask all of them. But I do want to get to a bunch of them. Do your best to answer them quickly. So your shorter answers. I know that you could, write an
Ramble
essay.
On.
But here's the first one is, what advice would you give to someone going into marine conservation? And that comes from Sarah Nicole Lee on Instagram.
Oh, awesome. So first of all, do it. It's a huge and growing field, really. There is so much to be done, and we need more people who are smart, effective, and who can really advance conservation. If it's on the scientific level, the legal level, the advocacy level, do it.
Love it. That's a great answer. So a friend outside is better. My friend Nick, he works at USC's Sea Grant program, or he was at USC Sea Grant, but he's still, I forget where he moved to now. But he had a couple really good questions because he's pretty familiar with this space. He said, what is the role of local governments in pushing international policy efforts? And he kind of specifically is hitting on, how can we ethically drive international conservation efforts without helicoptering into less developed countries? Who are we to tell them what policies they should adopt? Likely the U.S. government has stifled their economic growth. he really kind of went on. And then I want to bucket in a couple other questions from Cliff Capono, who is a friend and surfer out of Hawaii. He asked, should local communities manage their own MPAs instead of foreign conservancy groups? So I guess the question is, what is the balance between local government versus international or, other governments from other nations? And what is the role of sort of local indigenous people? Like Cliff is, Hawaiian. And so he's thinking about his indigenous people and their management versus a government coming in and telling them what to do.
Yep. So all really good questions. So taking the local government question first. So 30 by 30 isn't just in the international world. I should have said that. It's also an effort that's going on within each individual country. And local governments can have a huge say in making that happen, right? Because a lot of decisions that are made around land use are made locally. So if local communities can get behind 30 by 30, that's important, not just for the local community itself, but it shows the state at the state level and at the federal level that there's interest in pursuing 30 by 30. The U.S. we should absolutely be doing 30 by 30 in our own waters, and local communities are the foundation of that. With respect to how, the helicoptering in of big, international groups to establish protected areas, that is not what we're talking about here. First of all, most of the international waters are not owned by anybody. So I'm in the discussion of the High Seas Agreement, which we started with, there is very little use other than by the handful of developing countries that go out there and fish or mine or do other things. This is not an indigenous community generally led area. So in some ways it needs to be top down, because otherwise, the only people out there are the ones who are exploiting it. And that exploitation can have impacts within the zones.
I can imagine, if the U.S. and Russia and China and, the European fishing fleets all go out and wipe out some fishery stocks and or continue to impact the ocean in such a way that those fisheries are depleted, well, that's going to impact all of those local fisheries across,
Exactly.
Asia Pacific or across the African coastline. And that's where, we saw, there was an article a couple of years ago about how China was fishing off of Africa's coastline and essentially going like, all right, we're going to come over here, take your fish, and then bring it back to our country. And that's where regulation needs to come into place to, help make it equitable for everyone. So, out in the international waters, there's no one out there, and really policies in the international waters are going to benefit all those local communities and indigenous populations.
Exactly.
So we think. Cool.
Exactly. Yep.
A lot of questions about fishing. Nick also is asking about domestic fisheries. He kind of felt like it feels like when we just push environmental harm to other places by protecting our local spot, but then going out and harming those other places. Joanne Defay, who's one of our surfers, a French surfer on the championship tour, said, how important is it to regulate fishing? She says, I love to eat fish, but what is a good balance between enjoying some fish but not supporting these big industries? Sam Gaff asked, is there really such a thing as sustainable fishing? And Viney Travel asked, how can we manage protected spaces in the ocean and forbid fishing in these areas? So there's a question of like, can we fish sustainably? Is it even a thing? And if we are going to protect these areas, how do we manage them? How do you protect it if there's no one out there?
Yeah. So really good suite of questions. And fishing right now is the single most important human impact, has the single largest human impact of any. So with respect to shifting the burden question, the first one of the key things about MPAs is that they tend, if they're well cited, protecting areas that are important to fisheries can generate more fish so that you get more fish outside the protected area for people to have to enjoy. With respect to sustainable fishing, there are some people who believe there is no such thing, that it's an oxymoron, that you can sustainably fish, at a very low level where, all the stocks are depleted and you just keep them depleted forever. And so sustainable fishing, in my view, is not necessarily the goal, because you can have it sustained and totally depleted. In terms of the managing fisheries, I think it's absolutely essential, and we've done a terrible job at it. We've driven species after species down. You look at the Food and Agriculture Organization curves, and they're all in the same direction. And we're not going to be able to do that forever. We've got to manage our fisheries better. People around the world rely on fish for their basic protein. And so people are not going to eat if we don't do a better job at managing our fisheries. But I just want to also say it's not just about marine protected areas. It's about improving management outside the protected areas. So when we talk about 30 by 30, one of the pieces that doesn't get talked about so much, and should, in my view, is what happens in the other 70. We don't want to just let everything go to hell in a handbasket in the other 70. We need to strengthen protection and management out there too.
Well said. We got 3 more questions I want to get to. Why is the high seas? Oh, no, sorry. Can you point to any silver lining opportunities to expand efforts as a result of COVID-19? This is from C. Evans 999. I guess basically, like, does this provide us some kind of, is there some silver lining here of what we see coming out of this?
Good question. I mean, the only thing that I do think that I'm going to flip it around and say this has illustrated to me that this event with COVID-19 has illustrated to me with the advent of these new medicines coming out of the sea, how important it is for us to better understand the ocean. And hopefully that will illuminate to more people the need to get out there, do some science before we wreck it all.
Yeah, that's well said. You're doing a great job fielding tough questions here. Here's one. How long do we have to save the world?
Oh, boy.
Let's just say 2030. We got 10 years.
There you go.
30 by 30. That's the end. I'll spare you one. Okay. And then finally, we had a number of people. Dave's Burgers, Nameless Dudes, Eleanor Blatch, Sam Scoville, Polynorama. I can't read all these Instagram handles. Anyway, everyone was basically saying, what's the best way to help at a local level and on an individual level? What are good entryways to participate, support? What can everyone do to help preserve biodiversity? How can I get involved to help? Everyone wants to know, what can they do?
Yeah. Well, that's great. I'm so glad to hear it. And there are a lot of things that you can do. For one thing, please go to the weareoneocean.org site. And when that site launches, there will be a petition there that we'll send to the Secretary General and to others your demand to see this 30 by 30 happen. So that's one step. On a more local level, if you can and you're comfortable with getting locally involved in establishing the marine protected areas in consultation with other users locally, those ground up MPA efforts tend to be the most successful because they involve consultation. It was sort of implied in the previous questions. You really need agreement locally down. And then I know this sounds very boring, but write your president, write your states, your representatives in Congress, write everybody you can, do editorials. And, when you go to the beach, talk to people, talk to other people. Say, hey, there's this campaign out there on 30 by 30. Go to weareoneocean.org, NRDC.org, and sign up. So there are lots of things that can be done. And I think this group of surfers that you guys have are just a gold mine. And that gold mine can really help unlock a lot of these barriers to conservation in the ocean. So I'm thrilled to be part of it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Lisa. I think that's a great note to end on, getting engaged. I would also tell everyone, go join NRDC, go support, get behind, sign the petition, support and donate, and support the great work that NRDC does to protect our planet. It's really, really important. And it's a real pleasure to work with you. And thank you for your friendship and mentorship. And it's a joy to catch up, hopefully in person sometime soon.
It's awesome. Awesome to work with you, with WSL, and all your great surfers. Thanks.
Thanks, Lisa. Take care. Thanks again to Lisa for joining us this week and for all the work that you and your team do to protect the ocean. I know how hard you work and I know how important it is. We are so excited to launch this campaign with you. I mean, truly, I just can't wait to get this thing out and live. So listeners, before you move on to your next podcast, anyone watching, before you move on to the next show, please make sure you're subscribed here. And please make sure, if you're not subscribed here, that you're at least following along at WSL Pure so we can let you know when the campaign is live so that you can share your voice and be a part of this campaign. It's going to take all of us. And one of the coolest things about this podcast and this show is the community that we're building, from the questions that we get when we say, hey, send us a question for Lisa, to the people who engage in our social media, to fans who send us in emails about local conservation issues, and we have one that we're going to share this week. It's really important that we all get aligned behind this bigger issue, because it's going to pave the way for governments and states and local environmental orgs to do the conservation work they need to do. So we're really excited to bring this to you and really, really appreciate your support. Of course, go check out NRDC. We'll link to them in the show notes. But if you can become a member, they're really, truly one of the best environmental orgs out there. If you can't afford it, totally cool, but do follow along on social media and learn from what they're doing and the ways in which they work. As I mentioned, we had a really cool email come to us a few weeks back from Annie in Washington. She emailed us about the Chehalis River Dam project proposal, and it puts that local area at risk, including a surf spot at Westport. I've actually been there. It's a beautiful, beautiful area, and I'd hate to see anything happen to it. Annie's already doing the work. She's out there trying to get in touch with Surfrider Foundation, Save the Waves Coalition. We also saw, Annie, that Twin Bay Waterkeeper is an org that's active on this, and the Conservation Northwest org has a comment period currently open. So if you're in the Pacific Northwest and you care about that region and the environment there, go learn about the issue and go express yourself in this public comment period that'll be sent to the state. You have until May 27th. We also literally just noticed right before we recorded this that there is a film on YouTube called Chehalis, A Watershed Moment. It was only released a couple days ago. We haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but it does appear to give the issue solid coverage. So if you're interested in understanding this local issue about how this river system is changing, flooding, might need a dam, might not, and how it can affect a local surf spot and the environment around it, then I encourage you to go learn up, get yourself learned up on this issue. Thanks for sending that in, Annie, and thanks to everyone else who engages with us on social media. We got to as many questions with Lisa as we could this week. If we didn't get to yours, we're sorry, but please, keep us posted. That's all we got for this week. We're super excited.
Do you like that? Well, if so, subscribe over there and then watch more videos over there, and then tell us your favorite videos down there. It's a 3-step process. Do them all now.